So we have planted it, we pruned it back, and now we're in our first summer for these berries. So we are talking about flora cane varieties, and we are talking about right now our semi-erect or erect blackberries, more upright growth. What we're going to do is we're going to tip the canes when they're 8 to 12 inches above the top trellis wire. So depending on semi-erect, we're doing anywhere about 3 feet and above. On erect blackberries, we can grow them a little bit taller. They're a little more vigorous, a little more upright. It might be 4 to 5 feet tall. The reason we're topping them is the same exact reason we top limbs on an apple tree. If you remember, when we make a heading back cut, we're removing that very end growth bud that's producing the hormone auxin. That auxin flow makes those buds remain dormant and not grow. If we prune it out, we suddenly get more growth. Same exact thing is happening here. By pruning this, we're getting more lateral or side branching on these plants because that's where we're going to have our most fruit. We don't want a 15-foot tall cane. We want a shorter cane with a lot of side branching because it's the side branching is where we're going to find our flowers. That's where we're going to find the fruit. And so that's why we do this. We actually do want to do this by hand if we can. So if you've ever looked closely at berry plants, when they're young like this, when they're lush growth, they're not very woody on those topmost parts. You do probably want to wear a leather glove unless you're really tough. But you're going to want to go through, and it's actually very easy just to take your fingers and snap them. Snapping is preferred over cutting. And so some of this is timing thing. You can't just do this once unless maybe you just have 1 or 2 plants there. But you'll want to do this several trips because not every cane grows at exactly the same rate. Some buds break before others. So you're going to do this a few times, but just do it whenever they're still able to be broke. If you happen to miss some and you have to use some sort of pruners, that's okay. But it's actually a little bit better to do it by hand. We actually get a smaller wound. It heals over better because it kind of breaks at a natural point for itself. So that's why we like to do it by hand. So when we're doing our summer tipping, so for our blackberries, for the purple and black raspberries, we would like to do this when it's not wet and when it's not expected to rain or we're not expected to have real heavy dews because we do have open wounds. And we do want to be aware that when we have wet conditions, cane blight in particular can be easily spread through those open wounds and wet conditions. So if we have the option and we can pay a little bit of attention to the forecast, or if we're irrigating anything, take advantage of dry conditions to do that tipping. So what about subsequent summer pruning? Basically, for our primocane fruiters, we do exactly what we did the first year. For the flora canes, about the only thing we would do differently is if we have canes that are already fruited, we're going to remove those. So we can actually, some of our earlier varieties that fruit earlier in the season, we can go ahead and remove those even though we're in the growing period. So by removing those early in the cycle, we can actually sometimes short circuit disease spread. So it's not a bad idea to look at removing those soon after harvest. Because again, with flora canes, that cane is 2 years old. It's fruited and that's it. It's done. It's just going to die. So there's nothing wrong with removing it once it's no longer useful for us in production.